Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday weather outlook for the southern region brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, I need to tell you, I'm quite disappointed with myself. As you all know, I make my weather content quite early in the morning, and on my on my Monday and Thursday morning videos, we actually produce them around 2 a.m., and that's so they can get out the door and get to you very early in the morning. Well, at that particular time yesterday morning, I was looking out at the potential for some more thunderstorm activity right in through this quadrant. So was the Storm Prediction Center. But if you remember, on Sunday night into early Monday morning, we had a complex of thunderstorms that moved through this area, non-severe, but as they moved through, there was a lot of thinking that those storms had kind of, we call it, ruined the environment or washed out the boundary layer conditions necessary to really allow for another round of storms in this area. Plus, the upper level forcing wasn't well advertised at that point. So I decided to just leave it out of the forecast that we weren't looking at a major risk of severe weather inside of this corridor right in through here, but the chance for storms was real. And what disappointed me was that I didn't do deeper investigation into it, simply because I had kind of sided with what the National Weather Service was saying and also what the Storm Prediction Center was saying with this event. And what ended up happening as these storms went through was quite dramatic last night. So nearly 60,000 reports of lightning, as you can see over there on the left. So very active thunderstorm complex that moved through parts of the Mid-South. And then as you get over here, you can see that just on the northern edge of our southern region, we had 51 reports of severe weather, including 6 reports of tornadoes. And I want to show you what some of these storms look like here. So we're going to go right into this area and watch the storms erupt yesterday evening. So here we go. We have a lot of individual cells. So what this tells me is the upper levels of the atmosphere was conducive to great spin in the atmosphere. So a lot of these storms were spinning. And as they pushed through, we're going to take a closer look at this one in just a few seconds, which was the leading storm. But as they pushed through, this was a pretty rough night, getting into the late evening and early morning hours in through this corridor, pushing through parts of Tennessee, Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, as they came out of Missouri, as you can see here. And one of the storms went right through Nashville, produced a tornado. But I want to show you some of the structure we were able to see on radar. This is pretty impressive. So you're here in parts of Kentucky, so you can start to pick out some of the towns in here. And what was impressive to see was this is the main hail core right in through here with a very well-defined hook echo on the back side of the storm. And this was just one of our several tornadic supercell thunderstorms that went racing through this part of the United States last night. I got one very interesting video. This is by a guy named Sam. Sam works for the National Weather Service. And because these tornadoes were at night, they're, of course, very difficult to see here. But in his video, he saw this one going through parts of Nashville, and we're only able to see it because it was kind of lighting up the sky with both lightning and power flashes. That's what you see there as it's going through the city streets here. So this, we're going to wait and see as the sun rises this morning what some of the damage reports look like from this tornado. What was also quite interesting to me, and I just don't know what was going on here, is that if I go ahead and grab the cursor, let me pause this, and if I just go quickly through the video, do you see how the cranes are moving? All 3 of these cranes are moving kind of with the storm. They continue to point at the storm. And I've got a question, and if any of you who watch this know the answer, I'd be very happy to know. Do they, are cranes like this, are they programmed to move with the wind? In other words, if there's no operator, do they continue to move such that they're positioned properly in the wind so that they are not at any given time facing broadside into it, which would dramatically increase their chances of getting destroyed here? I'd like an answer to that. I'll have to search it later this morning if nobody gives me any input here. But if you know it, leave it in the comments. But impressive video, Sam. Thank you for allowing us to share this one. Well, now what we're dealing with is this. Okay, so this comes back to the main story of this whole week, which has been this cutoff low. So when I call it a cutoff low, just to make sure everybody's clear, the main flow of the jet stream is here. Okay? And what we have is a system right down here where, if you look, we can actually see completely closed loop in the wind field. See that? See how the winds are completely making a full circle. So the main flow is running off like this to the north and then lifting toward the north and east. And that means this features like a little eddy in a stream that is broken away from the main flow. So therefore, it's going to move slowly because it's not going to get picked up by the main flow. It's just going to very slowly meander over the next few days all the way across our southern region. And as a result of that, put down some pretty heavy rainfall. So these are the the latest numbers we're looking at here from the European model run early this morning, and we can see the heaviest rain stretching from parts of southeastern New Mexico all the way across central Texas, clear to South Carolina. It's got a really well-defined northern edge on this too, and that's just kind of the way these cutoff lows are working here. And if we zoom in and take a look at some of the numbers here, we can see that as this system finally emerges out of, parts of Mexico, Arizona, and New Mexico, we will be seeing precipitation totals hitting an inch to in some locations over 2.5 inches of rainfall in Texas. And then as we get over into parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, now we're talking about even bigger amounts. And folks, in this area over here, let me just zoom over there real quick. Remember, we're talking about an area that in the last 30 days over here has seen in some locations in excess of 20 inches of rain. We're going to add to that quite a bit more. What's important to see is that after the storms this morning move out of Tennessee and Kentucky, where of course they were very underrepresented in the models from the weekend and then yesterday in my forecast. So we put down quite a bit of rain in this area last night. Well, the next system that comes through here will stay to the south of that, giving a chance for some drying out. But you can see very, very heavy rainfall totals, maybe totaling as much as 4 inches in some locations here as these storms slowly roll through. Now, just to give you an idea on our severe weather threat, this is in the day on Tuesday. We have Wednesday up here, and over here is Thursday. And we can see that coming out of, southern Texas, moving over toward Louisiana, and a large area encompassed there in parts of Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia are on the lookout today for the potential for some stronger to severe thunderstorms. Main threat with this is we do have some isolated hail. Some of these storms will have enough wind shear to rotate, and we could be looking at some strong straight line winds out of them. On Wednesday, that threat transitions over to southern Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. And by the time we get into Thursday, it's really going to be southern Georgia, northern Florida that's going to be on the lookout for the strongest to most severe storms. So in that corridor, we got a 3-day event here to be watching. Now let's take a look at it from our European model here. So our cutoff low is currently sitting here. Here's where the leftovers from last night's storms are still pushing through this area. And the main lead wave, remember, is still sitting up here. So this is going to be the quickest moving system, leaving a frontal boundary in here, which we talked about, on which the cutoff low is going to ride. So if we just play this forward, let's pause it here and step you back and show you some of the big features. So by this afternoon and this evening, the storms are pushing over into parts of the Mid-Atlantic and over into the southeast. So right now, we're not projecting a lot of these storms to be severe, but we'll be seeing thunderstorm activity in through this corridor. And at that time, our cutoff low is now producing the heavy rainfall in New Mexico and Texas. So as we get into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, this is now Wednesday afternoon and evening, we can just see wide these scattered showers and thunderstorms all throughout this area. And the severe threat we're talking about on Wednesday is right down here, as you can see. Very windy conditions around this, pretty closely spaced isobars, as you can tell. As we get into Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, and evening, it's now pushing over to the southeast. And finally, by Friday morning, that system is out. And what's behind it is higher atmospheric pressure for Friday, into Saturday, and into Sunday. But with that high pressure center by Saturday night spreading here over parts of West Virginia and then eventually off the coast, you know what these high pressure cells do. You know the clockwise flow around them. It's just going to return the moisture right back into the same area by next Monday. And here we go with our next system out here next Monday. So we've seen multi-model support for this. We've seen multi-model run support for this as well. And that's why we can see that the return of moisture is going to happen around that high. We could be looking at another start to a very stormy week in our southern region next Monday into Tuesday, all the way out through early Wednesday morning. So we've got another round of this coming through after this first one clears out by Thursday night. Okay, so that's kind of your near-term look at what's going on here. As we look at exclusively into week 2, we're going to talk about the pattern really adjusting here such that we're building a deeper trough that's going to extend just like this. The flow is going to come around it and really increase precipitation amounts in California, but also in our Four Corners states. We still have the subtropical branch cutting underneath that, and waves will eject out of the southwest, the desert southwest, which is going to keep this area on the wetter side of things through week 2 as well. So we've seen a few days now that the forecasts have been calling for this time period to continue to show up wet in that area. Okay, how is this all coming together? Well, I want to show you just the main ideas here in the upper levels of the atmosphere. So here's our cutoff low. There's our lead wave. Remember how they separated? We talked a lot about that on Friday and again on Monday. And as they move through, that pushes off, and another shortwave digs down in through here. And this is the one that will initiate the high pressure that comes in toward the end of the week. Now, the only problem is this is going to produce a pretty cool weekend here for the eastern half of our southern region, while ridging returns back to the midsection of the U.S., warming up the south central part of the United States. So now getting into Saturday morning, into Sunday, and into Monday, this is where the flow pattern really begins its full adjustment. What I mean is the main anchor of cold is still here, but there's a trough that extends off of the southwest coast. And this is going to dramatically change things from February into March for California, giving them an enormous amount of precipitation. They're getting it because of this high over low flow. But usually when we have that, the pattern across the rest of the lower 48 is relaxed in terms of seeing deep troughs, which means we're going to moderate our temperatures again, although we're expecting to stay quite active as systems come out of this trough through the U.S. That's the main story. With time, we continue to see the ridging, the main ridging event happening off the Aleutian Islands. And what that simply means is this trough feature that's sitting over here is just an extension of the cold weather that's here, but it's not truly connected. So that's why you'll see in a forecast throughout the next 10 to 15 days a real lack of sustained cold air as long as we keep the flow pattern looking like you see here, which is the main ridge feature sitting off the Aleutian Islands, the coldest air sitting over the Arctic, where we still have our strong polar vortex. We still have the very positive Arctic oscillation, no change in that, but the difference is this trough that's developed here. So let's take a look at what this means in terms of temperatures first. So this is today, Tuesday's departure from normal temperatures. So as the cutoff low comes in through here, we do see that the rest of the southern region seeing 5 to 10 degrees above average, but where the cutoff low comes in on Tuesday, it's looking cooler there. By Wednesday, the cloud cover, the precipitation spreads, so a lot more cooler weather in through this area. And then what you notice across our southern region is that just progresses east on Thursday. And then remember, toward the end of the week, that's when the deeper trough is now sitting here underneath that big area of high pressure. Remember, I showed it to you over West Virginia. And as a result, we have this cooler finish to the week for the eastern half of our southern region. And then we start to moderate temperatures as we get into Sunday and Monday. But that's the flow pattern this week is watch the cutoff low, then watch the deeper trough become established. Higher pressure, so clearer skies, but colder conditions before that high slides off the coast and we start to return the moisture into next week. So taking a look at next week, this is day 5 through 10. Again, we see a very relaxed pattern as the trough develops out here. Remember this, the flow is broadly ridging across the country, hence near average to warmer than average conditions. And we do see that continuing now out to mid-March. Overall, there's no strong signal that suggests we're going to go over into a colder mid-March by any stretch. Why you don't see such strong warm anomalies like we have been seeing is, again, the big ridge is pushing off in this direction, the deeper trough dives down here, and the flow is just relatively zonal across the rest of the United States. So we don't have a reason in the models to go after really, really warm conditions. But I'll tell you, overall, not much has changed in the general flow of the atmosphere. So I don't have any reason to make a call right now for anything in terms of sustained colder weather. Now, what I mean by that is cooler than average temperatures lasting more than a couple of days. All right. To finish this out, I want to show you two last graphics. Always on Tuesday, we get the new long range output from the European model. So this is now, again, March 10th through April 10th. And it's quite interesting. We are seeing a dry signal in through here and there as well. But we've seen the model advertise a drier signal in those areas, yet the flow is still tucked away into a trough back here, subtropical jet stream coming in like this. So I think we may have biased to this area too dry and this area too dry. But one thing is for certain, the models have really been keen on keeping this area quite active with storm systems. That's parts of the Tennessee Valley and the Ohio Valley getting over to the mid-Atlantic. So keep an eye on that. And one of the other things that the models have really trended toward here is the coolest weather extending back here, not only through the mountains, but out in the Pacific. And more often than not, through the next month, we're going to be seeing warmer than average conditions across our southern region. I will say this does not mean that by mid-March we couldn't see a slight pattern adjustment. There have been some suggestions that by mid-March we could let some of that cooler air push across. But remember, cooler air in mid-March for the southern region is not like cooler air for mid-March, for the southern region in February. So just keep an eye on it. I'll keep you updated. And Friday we'll take a brand new look at this longer range forecast as well. And with that, though, we'll go ahead and wrap it up right here. I'll talk to you again very soon. Thank you for your attention.